Okay, so just to share another slide with you. Okay, so as Kirsty said, you know, we want everybody to work together on this, and I think part of the work is for the group to decide what they think are important things to be working on. So the first one was about the promises. This was about having a look at them to see if we think that they're as good as they should be, that everybody's happy with them. I don't know, Gwen, or Kirsty, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Promises were created by me, I'm on the spot now, probably about 5 years ago. So that's the children, young people and adults that we support all over the country were asked what they wanted from MacIntyre. And these sessions included anybody who wanted to be involved. So they were done using pictures and signing as well as verbal communication. So everybody could get involved. And we ended up with, I think, about 64 promises that people wanted from us from around the country. And we all know that if you make a promise, you can't break it. So we had to kind of join some of these promises together in order to have some promises that we could all work with. And we ended up with 8 MacIntyre promises that were then agreed by everybody. So nowadays, all our staff learn about the MacIntyre promises in induction, and they know that they need to keep these 8 promises for everybody that we support, no matter where they are in the country and no matter which MacIntyre services they use. So I think what we're looking at now is reviewing whether these promises are still what everybody wants, or whether they need some changes done to them.
Kirsty, is the idea that we want this group to decide the best way to review those promises?
The objective we want to achieve is to review the promises. It's a good time to do that. In true reflection of co-production, we've made no decisions about how we do that. So that's something that I want us as a group to decide how we do that, how we involve other people that don't sit on this group, how we take that back to our local areas. So there have been no decisions made. That's for us to debate and discuss and decide how we're going to do that moving forward.
Yeah, so any thoughts, anyone? Yeah, Vicky?
Well, in a lot of them, I was actually asked by Gwen to help with them.
So have you got any ideas the best way to ask people what they think about them now?
Yeah, by actually asking them.
So what would be a good way to do that, do you think?
I think, you know, like in the mag.
Yeah.
You could do a thing on it and ask, like, do a segment on it. Or a written bit. You know, like do a bit on it about what it is, and then have another bit at the bottom that if people want to have any comments or see what to think about it, or if it needs updating or something, then
yeah, that's a really good idea. So would you do that one promise at a time, or a few promises at a time, or?
Well, if you do more than one, it might get a little confusing if you start going, well, you need to change this on this one, you need to change this on this one, you need to change this on this one, this needs this, and then it might get a little complicated if you do more than one. So okay. If you do one at a time, it'll be baby steps rather than trying to sprint when you can barely run.
Okay. One thought about that is the mag. Gwen, is it every quarter it comes out?
Yeah, there's only 4 mags a year, one for each season.
Yeah. Well, so what potential idea would be to use that approach, but maybe not just rely on the mag. We could do it, send it out as a thing on its own, maybe.
Based on what Vicky just said, rather than it being in the mag, because sometimes people don't like ripping out their mags and things, we could put it just in as an extra loose page that people can fill out and then post back to us. So, because we know that when we've tried things before and then questioned why people haven't done it, is because they don't want to ruin the mag.
Yeah. So like when you used to have in the newspapers, your things, remember it well. Kirsty, sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just I'm not sure if everybody knows, but we've got 3 My Voice groups across the country. One in Warrington, one in Patsy, obviously she was yesterday, and Milton Keynes. And I just wondered, Pat, what are your thoughts on asking the My Voice group to take an active role in your area in terms of reviewing the promises?
Yeah, obviously I was thinking that yeah, they would love to do that. It was one of the things, it was going to be on the agenda for this year anyway, obviously before COVID, that we were going to look at the promises, not so much reviewing them, but how the My Voice group felt they were being implemented, really, and whether we were implementing them the way that we think we're doing it, and the way that it's actually received, and whether that's actually working. So it was on the agenda for this year anyway, so it wouldn't come too much of a surprise to them if I said that that's what we were going to do, and they'd be more than happy to help out with that, definitely.
Okay, great.
So one of the challenges I think we face is lots of the people we support don't always communicate with words. So how we need to think about how we ask people that don't communicate with words whether the promises are working for them, really, and if their staff are keeping the promises. So that's something that I think we need to consider, because the mag is great, but if people can't read, then that's not helpful. We can add we can do a survey monkey as well for people that use IT, which would be really helpful. But for our people that we support that don't read or write or talk in words and communicate through their body language, we need to think about how we assess whether the promises are good for them.
I'm just wondering if person-centred reviews, past and future, could help with that, so that, you know, looking at what's working and not working. So partly, you know, that'll tell us in terms of if their promises have been met, but I suppose also it might be that there might be things people are asking for.
Not wanting to be too boring, because it's a really exciting subject, but we could look at the complaints that we've received over the last, I don't know, period of time, to see whether we can pick out any trends around complaints that people are making.
Yeah. Okay. So has anybody got any other ideas we've not touched on?
We did out loud and send us an audio.
So
that's a great idea. That's
yeah,
a great idea,
audio.
Mark. Yeah, doing an audio or a film to go out to people, so you don't have to read.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, right. So we've got the audio. Any other thoughts, Gwen?
I was just going to add that for some people that we support, it's very difficult to look at something like a promise that we already have and to be able to say, this is what's wrong with it, or this is what I would prefer instead. For many people, it's actually easier to start at the very beginning of what do you want from us. And I know that's not quite the same as a review of what we've got, but we do support lots of people who I think will really struggle with looking at what we've got and coming up with something else. Whereas if you start with a blank piece of paper, so to speak, of what do you want from us? What do you want your staff to promise you?
Is it, you know, that we're not asking them to change it. The initial thing is, what do you think of the, you know, do they work, don't they work? Keep it as simple as that. And then if they're not working, then maybe they need a bigger piece of work.
Yeah, I think if we start off by trying to understand whether people feel that they're generally fit for purpose or not, the detail we could look at more forensically with this group, couldn't we, as opposed to taking that out to more people. I suppose generally the question is, are the promises fit for purpose? That's what we're asking, isn't it?
Yeah. And I suppose one of the things I'm thinking is that the promises do align very much with other work that groups have done around what's important in their lives, if you see what I mean, you know, when we line them up.
Sue?
Yeah?
When you did your piece of work with the shout out group where you were looking at the promises, can you remember if you thought they needed to change very much, or did they still work?
I think we had to change a few, I think.
Did you?
Some people didn't understand like the picture and then the bit of writing. I think we had to change a few things of the promises.
So perhaps maybe a good start would be to get Paul to share that, because Paul's still got all of that, hasn't he, Kirsty, I think?
Yeah, he has.
The checkers could always take a fresh look at them, because originally there were supposed to be more than 8, and then the director team kind of decided to pull them together to, you know, I think we had about 12, pull them together to be 8, and being diplomatic. So, but it were pulled together to 8, and that actually ties in with what Su Ling is saying, because if you add an ad, instead of having something that's easy to read like this, you get something that's not easy to read like that. And there's at least 2 that have more than one concept, more than one thing within them, and that makes them difficult. So yeah, it might be time to think about that.
The other thing that I think we sort of need to think about while we're doing this piece of work is that in order, we don't include what we're trying, the outcome that we want to achieve in the promises either. So actually, if you listen to me, that makes me feel, so we can start talking about how being supported by MacIntyre makes somebody feel. So that might be something we want to include in the promises. And actually, with respect to the listening promise, we don't need the listen to and deal with my complaints and all of that stuff. Actually, if we can describe what it feels like to be listened to, is that sufficient, as opposed to adding more tasks into the promises?
I think that's a really good point, because what we did with the mobile phone usage was we asked the My Voice group to say how they felt when the staff were on their phone, and it made the staff think about what their actions were actually doing, and it was that it makes them feel lonely, it makes them feel sad, it makes them angry, because they're paying for this time and you're on your phone on Facebook. So I think actually going back and saying, yeah, how if you listen to me, how does that make you feel? Not only is it making the people we support have a voice, but also it makes it real to the support staff.
Absolutely, Patsy. If we can humanise stories and describe how MacIntyre supports people in terms of stories, then that resonates with all of us, because that's the reason why we do the job.
So, do you think if I don't know if anybody else is taking notes, I've taken some brief notes. So if I put something together to try and summarise what we've said so far, and then if I've missed anything, if people can add into that, include the ideas that we've got. We'll get Paul to share the shout. Would this be something perhaps for maybe the next meeting or a meeting soon to look at all of that again when we've had a chance to think about it outside the meeting, and then start moving forward with it? Would that work for people? Yeah. Okay then, great. So I apologise, I may have missed stuff. So, but having said that, we're recording, aren't we?